UX Design Principles talk. If you didn't know that, I hope you're in the right place. My name is Slobodan Stipic, and my email is slobodan@gmail.com, so if you have any questions, feel free to email me later on or ask me during the talk. I'm also on Twitter at Slobo80. I just tweet about tech stuff, no personal, so you can follow me if you want to hear what I have to say. And I have a blog at dev@card.com. That's where you're going to find my slides and maybe even the video if it turns out well. My wife is always back there recording, so please no bad comments because we don't want to bleep anything. Okay, so a little bit about me before we start. I've been doing software engineering for the past 10 years and mostly focusing on Microsoft technologies, Windows Phone, .NET, ASP.NET, and Windows 8. And recently I started working for Google since we got acquired. So I'm going to be probably switching to Google technology stack. As far as the community, I'm a director of communications and I helped out put this code camp together, so I hope you're all enjoying it. Everybody enjoying the code camp? Yeah. That's good. Well, I promise it's going to be even better next year. We'll change some things that didn't work out this year, we'll make it even better and have more people. And maybe even bring more UX talk. Seems like it's popular and I don't think we're getting enough attention. And we're all here because we want to learn more about UX and maybe we are forced to do it because there's no designers in our companies, right? The developers are forced to do UX and a lot of times we feel that we are not, we don't have that talent. We think it's a talent to create a good user experience or pick the right color. But hopefully today you will be able to learn that it's not about talent. It's actually a lot of it is science with a little bit of talent. We always need a little bit, but if we can get 80% science and 20% talent, that's good enough. And I'm also co-organizer of a GIF camp. Last year we had a great GIF camp in Orlando. It hosted over at Full Sail University. So if anybody's from Orlando and want to do something for the community over a weekend and help nonprofits create a project, I encourage you all to come to GIF camp and dedicate your professional skills. That's it's probably going to be around November, right, Zeke? Like November time frame. That's what we had last year. So what we're going to talk about today, first we're going to look at some evolution of UX, how it evolved from command line interface all the way to natural user interface. And then I'm going to talk about universal principles of design. These principles are true today, and they were true 100 years ago, regardless of the technology, regardless whether it's a software, whether it's a product, cookie box, whatever, or they're going to be true even 100 years from now. So these principles, if you buy a book today, it's not like one of those textbooks you can throw it away next year. You can keep it. And one of the books I have referenced at the end, you will see it's called The Universal Principles of Design. I highly recommend getting that book if you're interested in UX. It's a really great book. And another thing I would like to plug is the person that inspired me. It's Billy Hollis. He has a talk on Pluralsight. I went to his session at VS Live a couple of years ago. This guy knows what he's talking about. He's a UX genius, in my opinion. So check his blog. He's got a couple of references to books and videos, and that will be a good starting point for anybody who is interested in UX. And after we look at those principles of design, we're going to check out some practical tips. And these are the tips that I've learned over time designing Windows Phone and web and Windows Forms applications. And some principles that I have not explored, but I really think are important. So let's see how the user experience has evolved and user interface over time. We started back in the day, in DOS time, with the command line interface. And the problem with that was that it was tough to use it, right? Not many people were able to memorize all the commands. And user had to type in every command, remember it, remember the parameters. Like if you wanted to do a copy of file from hard drive to a flash drive, you had to do copy, space, source, destination. So you had to do a lot of stuff, and not only that, you had to type it correctly. You couldn't mistype. So not many people used computers back then. And then we had a graphical user interface. It became a lot easier to use computers. You could just drag and drop, and the mouse came into the picture, right? That was much easier. And then the latest evolution in user interface, we have a natural user interface. I'll give you an example in my company, what we did a few years ago. We had a CRM software where we went to a bank and they were using command line user interface. So we told them, we have this CRM product, it's graphical. If you use this, you will reduce new bank account opening from 45 minutes to 25 minutes. And they got on board with us and we deployed that. And they did really reduce 20 minutes their new bank account opening, which improved efficiency. But not only that, they were able to reduce their training time for their bank agents. But today, if we want to use natural user interface, and when we talk about natural user interface, we're thinking about an interface that that's almost invisible to the user or becomes invisible. So that's a touch, voice, gestures, so those kind of commands. So if we look at that application that I just mentioned, we can add some improvements to the user interface where we don't need to anymore input people's email address, first name, last name, and they want to open a new account. What if we could just take a picture of their ID and then pre-populates all the information? Well, we know where they're opening bank account. Why can we use the GPS, HTML5 support geocoordinates to pre-populate that, reduce that necessary input, which even not only can create problems when user is entering information, maybe it's a mistyped zip code, right? But it's also reducing the training time for the people, for the bank agents. So if we look at here, this graph, we have a cognitive load on the y-axis and kinematic load on the x-axis. And this is a command line interface at the top. So before we talk about that, let's just define what kinematic load means in cognitive. This refers to, so cognitive is what you need to remember. So in the command, when you're thinking about commands, copying, it's what you need to remember to input, and here is what you need to type. So this is like a physical activity, where this is mental activity. So in the command line, you need to remember a lot of commands and need to type a lot of stuff, and you can make a lot of mistakes by typing. You need to train users a lot. So that's very, very hard to use. And then we have a graphical, which is less cognitive load and less physical activity, less kinematic load, where natural is at the bottom, the easiest to use. So when we combine cognitive and kinematic, that's something called performance load. We need to strive to reduce the performance load in order to make the user interface easier. And I think a lot of people in this room have an iPad or a tablet, right? How many people have a tablet? Yeah, almost everybody has a tablet. And if I ask you, what do you like about tablet? What would be the answer? It's simple, right? And it's easy to use. It's just touch. There is not much. And that's what we need to think when we're designing the apps. How to simplify and how to reduce the cognitive and kinematic load. So and that's combined called performance load. So there are a few techniques that we can use to reduce that. So to reduce the cognitive load, we have to reduce the clutter. That's where these mobile apps are great. They don't have much clutter. They're simple. And then other technique we can use is chunking. That's great for memory-intensive tasks. And any other task that are memory or computationally intensive, we should try to eliminate them. So going back to that bank account opening, maybe this person, this customer that's in a bank wants to open a bank account, is a great customer, you want to give him a discount, 10%. We should not force the agent to take a calculator and calculate what is a 10% discount. We should pre-populate that, pre-calculate that for the user. I oftentimes see the applications that make user use another computer or another device to enter the information because they need to calculate something, so they enter it again. Or like a zip code is a good example, as I mentioned earlier. Don't make user enter the zip code. Pre-populate. Let them modify it, but you should pre-populate. Assume what user is hitting. Maybe it's not going to be 100% correct, but 90 or 80% is good enough. And then for reducing kinematic load, we can reduce the number of tasks we need to perform, a number of steps we need in a task to perform it successfully, to reduce the energy needed to complete the task. When you're designing a software, do you ever count the number of clicks user needs to perform to successfully complete a task?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great way of doing it, right? Count number of clicks, count number of fields users need to populate. If I'm opening a bank account, do I really need to enter the beneficiary information, secondary phone, or there are a bunch of other information that we are forced to enter, but maybe all we need is the first name, last name, address, and social security number. Let's collect only that. Don't worry about anything else. When the customer comes back next week, once he opens an account, he's not going to quit and leave. Make him open that account, and then the following week when he comes to make a deposit, then you collect the rest of the information. Don't try on the first try to bother him for 45 minutes and he's going to give up and walk away. It's a little bit harder in the branch, but when you're online, users are going to just leave you right there. Let them all enter only the minimum amount of information necessary. So that's reducing the number of steps in a task. Okay, now I'm going to start to dig into these techniques. So we're going to dig into the techniques for the reducing the cognitive load, and then we're going to look at the kinematic load. So first one is, as the number of steps increases, the time needed to successfully complete, sorry, it's a different one. As the number of alternatives increases, the decision to complete the task increases. So let me go talk about one of the software I worked on. When we started the CRM, right? It was very simple. It had only 2 options. It was easy to use. It had only a couple major operations: open your bank account, modify the address. It was easy for a user. Not much training was necessary. It worked really well. But then the customer said, well, it would be great if we could do some workflows, maybe workflow tasks. So we added that feature. Then the customer said, it would be great if we could do some document management. So we added that. So a couple of years later, we have this big, giant CRM that required 2 weeks of training. The user had 20 options to choose from when they entered the application. So if they wanted to open a bank account, they had to scan through 20 different options to open a bank account, whereas at the beginning they had only 3 options. It was easy. They would just click, boom, 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 and task complete, go to a visitor. So that's what happens. You see here, the line says, as the number of alternative increases, the response time increases as well. That's very, very obvious on tablets and mobile applications, good mobile applications and good tablet applications, where you have only a few options. When I open my phone, I don't want to have to scan through 30 different menu options. I just want to open it, click, and put it back in the pocket, right? I want to see the temperature. If I want to look at my phone and see the temperature, I look at my live toggle, I see the big number, it says the temperature, I put it back in the pocket. Or even better, the lock screen. I have it on my lock screen. I don't need to enter the application, scroll, search, none of that stuff. So the number of alternatives is very narrow. This application may not be very powerful, may not give me a lot of information, but it gives me what I need 80% of the time right away. And obviously the benefits, the response time is very low, right? Training cost and error rates. Less options, less possibility to make errors. And now we're going to move on to the next technique for memory testing. So we have 2 numbers, we have identical numbers. But if I read this number aloud, and then I read this number, which one would you remember? It's second one, right? Second one, 2 times multiplied by 7. So then I use the first one chunk. Both the number chunks. That's because most simplify the design. Like for instance, let's say you go to Google Shopping. You're searching for running shoes. You type in running shoes, and then you get 10 results on the first page. And then you're like, ah, these are not it. Then you click on the next page. And then you click next. Now you lost the context. What did you see on the first? What did you see on the second? You don't know anymore. It's for those kind of tasks, it's much better to have it on one page where you can scroll, and as you're scrolling, it keeps loading, kind of like an infinite loading list. So that way you have the context, you can see all the information on one page. That's a much better way of presenting information. So you have to be careful how to use this. So those were the principles for reducing the design techniques for reducing the cognitive load. Now I'm going to look at the technique for reducing kinematic load, which is physical activity. I want to do a little demo here. Okay, that's cool. So, as the distance and the size of the target, as the distance increases and the size of the target decreases, the time required to hit that target increases. So, if I have here CodeCamp, for instance, and I want to change the font size, I need to select the text, right? And I want to change it, I need to scroll the cursor all the way to the top, and then enter the font. So you saw I had to scroll with the cursor to the top, enter, in order to change that, change the font size. But other thing I could have done is just right click here and have it right here. So my response time was much faster. So the context menu in this case is very helpful. And this is a good technique if you want to make the application more efficient. But how would you do this on a touch? Has anybody used the OneNote on Windows 8? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's an excellent example of design for touch where they use the Pie menu. So I'm going to do the same thing, type in CodeCamp. I'm not sure how this is going to work. So I select the text with my finger, got the menu, it's a Pie menu. I don't need to move my finger anywhere. My finger is right here where the font is, where the menu is, and I can scroll and change the font size. Change the color. It's right there. So radial menu is excellent for touch. And we will come back later and see how iPod was successful and how other MP3 players later on failed. And they use the radial menu as well. I mean the iPod also, not the other ones. So time required to hit the target is the function of distance and width. So if you want to make the time required slow, we need to increase the distance, increase the width. But what did they do in Windows 8? They made the corners of the screen, see what happens, the menu comes up if I put my cursor there. They made them functional, right? They have a function. Every corner in Windows 8 has a function because the width is infinite when you hit the edge of the screen, the corners. That's considered infinite. So distance over width, if it's infinite, then the time is almost minimal. So if you need to make something very easy to acquire, the corners or the edges of the screen are the best place to position your elements. Same thing on the left corner or the bottom corner. So that's where Microsoft used the design principle. But there are a lot of times when we don't want user to hit by mistake some functions like logout button. You don't want a user try to open a bank account or by mistake clicks the button and closes the application, right? So that's the case where we want to make it very small, the width of the logout button, and we also want to position it that's hard to acquire. You don't want to position it in the corner where the user is by mistake, push the cursor and click OK, and poof, it's gone. And if we use this principle, we will improve the performance and reduce the error rates. Okay, so those were performance load techniques we can use to improve our design. But now we're going to move on and look at the different principles. Everybody's familiar with the paint application and ribbon, right? Why did Microsoft choose these particular functions to put them in the ribbon? Why not something else? They're the most common ones because in almost every software, 80% of the tasks are 80% of the time, 20% of the tasks are used. So here, these are like about 20% of the features of Paint. And those are optimized for the best performance and for the easiest use. They did not focus too much on the other ones. They focused on these. When I was doing this presentation in Fort Lauderdale, one guy said, for a tablet and phones, we should not focus on 20. We should and have those 80. We should remove 80% and just keep 20% of the features. I thought that was pretty cool, right? I mean, why even have too many options in the app? Create another app if you need to, but don't try to have this huge monolithic tablet or phone app. So we should try to, when we're designing, focus on 20% of the features that are most commonly used. And the rest of them, we can hide. They're discoverable, but they're not obvious. And those 20% expose them to toolbars, icons, or in some other way. Like a live tile is a great way to expose those 20%. In my weather app, what do I care for? I care about current temperature, weather, and what the temperature is going to be maybe tomorrow. I can see all that from live tile. I don't need to go to the app. I never need to run the app. Actually, on the lock screen, it's enough to put those features. I don't need anything else. So make those accurate and make sure they look nice, the design is nice. The rest of them, whatever you want to put, maybe you want to put a map or a radar, whatever, that's fine, but I can run the app if I want to get that information. Okay. Now, another design principle, contour bias. Any tea drinkers here? Yeah? What kind of tea do you like?
Earl Grey.
Earl Grey? That's my wife's favorite. So which tea kettle do you find more appealing? Which one would you buy?
Well, I'm the odd duck out, but I would pick the left one.
The left one? You like the sharp one?
I'm more utility user.
Who would pick the left one? And who would choose the right one? See, not everything works for everybody. So we have a little disagreements. But in general, rounded objects are more preferred by users. People prefer rounded objects. When we look at the sharp objects, the part of the brain called amygdala gets activated, which is associated with fear processing. And that's something that throughout evolution we learned and it became part of our nature. When we look at the knife, our brain gets activated for fear processing, and then we are in a state of emergency. We are careful, we react differently. And that carries over to the UI design. So, knowing that rounded objects are preferable, we can leverage that in our design. So some people are going to say, well, yeah, well, like Windows Phone or Metro is all square, we have these tiles, and they're all sharp, right? But that's for a reason, like on the phone. Why do we have that? How many minutes do you use a phone at a time? Like probably a couple minutes or a minute, and then you put it back to the pocket. Because what you want with the phone, you want to take it out of the pocket, look at the information, get something, and put it back. So you want something that's going to draw your attention, and Sharp Object will do that. Your brain will activate. When you want to draw the attention, you want to use Sharp Object. Like you want to show something that's important. Maybe you want to use the rectangle, sharp, or a triangle, or something like that. So Perform works really well. But if I'm sitting in front of the application, in front of some software 8 hours a day, I'm like Excel or something like that, I'm using 8 hours a day, Sharp Objects would be tiring for my brain. So I need to use objects that are rounded, they're more pleasing aesthetically, and just don't activate that part of the brain. So that's about our contour bias. Now, we're going to look at something else, some other principle. And here I have four different designs, but they have one thing in common. The Great Pyramid of Giza, Stonehenge, Parthenon, and iPod. What do you think is the common between all these?
The height to width ratio.
Who said that?
I did.
You're a genius.
No, I'm not.
You want to present?
No.
No. That's right. That's exactly right. It's a golden ratio.
Yeah.
It's a golden ratio. Apple knows what they're doing. So here, as I mentioned, I was going to tell you about these MP3 players. Who remembers these two? 1, 2, okay. These MP3 players came out way before iPod. But only 2 people remember these. And I'm not going to ask who remember these. Because everybody knows this, right? But why this never took off? And iPod did. Why? Well, there are multiple reasons. Look at the screen. It's almost exactly as the golden ratio. It's 0.62 in comparison to the height of the iPod. Look at the wheel. It's pie chart. It's kind of like a pie, right? So when I'm here with the finger, I just do this, and it's easy to use. Look at this one. I click here, then I have to click here, then I come down here, and then my head hurts. Nobody wants to use it. Look at the edges, how nicely rounded they are. They should patent that. That's the reason why they succeeded. It's not like they invented anything. They just use these principles of design. They've been known forever. And we should use those too. Why don't we use them? There's no reason. Apple doesn't have these geniuses. They just use these principles of design. They're out there. This is another one that's been known for like 5 centuries. Anybody knows Gutenberg? Gutenberg Press? Yeah. He's the one who is most responsible for printing press, popularizing printing press. So what he did was, he created a Gutenberg diagram. So if you think about this rectangle as a page, or a screen, web page, whatever you want, and divide that in 4 quadrants, for Western readers, what you will notice is that our eyes follow from top left to bottom right. So knowing that, you can lay out your elements on the page based on it, right? For instance, this actually works only for homogeneous and distributed content. Like if you have a heavy use of text and something like that, you should not use this if it's if you have maybe a lot of text boxes and then you have pictures and text. That doesn't work. But otherwise, this is great. So for instance, if you want to put a headline and then you want to maybe one image and a button or a lot of text, headline you could put here in this. So when the user comes in, boom, they know what you're talking about. Then maybe a nice picture and then a button. And I'll show you an example where that is very well used on a web page. Look at this web page, what they did. So here it tells you what the service is, what is it for, and sign up. That's the first thing you see when you look at this web page. In 3 seconds, you'll know everything you need to know to sign up. It's an excellent example of using Gutenberg diagram to design a web page. Now, one of my favorite topics, color. So, you know, the way I used to think about color is that I was not talented and I would always throw the color on the wall and see what sticks. And my second app I created, Windows Phone app, is I created this app. It would give me the real-time rating of the apps in the marketplace. And I thought it was a good app, and my users thought too. They just hated the background color. They said, this is a great app, but the yellow background is awful. It's hurting my eyes. And I thought yellow was good. I like yellow color, but nobody else did. So I got a lot of 3 or 4 star reviews because of the color was bad. So I was like, how come I don't see what they see? I thought I don't really have talent. But choosing color is not a talent. There's maybe a little bit. Like everything needs a little bit of talent, but most of it is science. So when you're choosing a color, you're starting an app or a website, you gotta choose the color scheme you're gonna use. But how do you choose the color scheme? There's websites that you can plug in. I want to start with blue, and they're gonna give me complementary colors. Well, before you use any tools, it makes sense to understand the color a little bit first. So the starting point for color is color wheel. Color wheel has 12 pure basic colors, and they can be divided into warm and cool. And we can use color to group the elements, to attract attention, and enhance aesthetics. So let's see how we can do that, and why do we divide color into cool and warm. But how do we get these 12 colors first? We start with 3 basic: yellow, red, and blue. And if we combine them, we got the secondary colors, secondary 3, and then combining those 6, we get another 6. So those are pure hues, pure colors. And they're not very common in nature, so we should almost never use them. If you look at outside the sky, it's not blue, it's not white. Those leaves, they're not green. They're not purely green. So there's a lot of saturation, there's brightness, and that's what's appealing to our eyes. Pure hues are not found in nature, and they're not good for appealing design. They're good for attracting attention. And we have to be careful how we use color, and we should use it conservatively. On a glance, we are capable of registering up to 5 colors. So having a rainbow is not going to be a good design. I would recommend you, when using less than 5, maybe 3 colors. Choose 3 colors that work together and use that. But don't try to impart information only on color, because a lot of people out there have some problems. They cannot register colors, right? They have some limited color vision. So that should not be the only way. But how do we choose those colors is a technique. If we need 2, 3, or 4 colors, we can use different techniques. So here we have a complementary technique. If you need 2 colors, we should choose colors that are opposite on color wheel. Or if you need 3 colors, we can use analogous. Those are 3 colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. Or another way of choosing 3 colors, if you draw an equilateral triangle, and then where the edges are touching the colors, those are complementary. And for quadratic, you can do just a rectangle inside of a color wheel. But those are pure hues, so that's a good starting point, but not the end. The color has 2 properties, saturation and brightness. Saturation refers to the amount of gray in a color. So in this particular diagram, we have with the saturation at the bottom and on the x-axis, and brightness on the y-axis. So as the saturation increases, the amount of gray decreases. So we have the least gray here, and we have the most white here for the brightness. So the brightness increases as the white is added to the hue. So if you need to attract attention, then we should use the saturated colors, which are here. But if we want to have an efficient design, then the bright desaturated colors are much better and more appealing. And for some friendly and professional design, desaturated and dark colors are better. And for these are for professional, and this is for friendly and friendly design. Yeah.
Where is that written down? Where would I find that information outside of your brain?
I have the references at the end,
Okay.
so you can check those references, and if something is missing, just email me and I'll give you the information.
All right.
I'm not sure if I document every single thing.
Sure, sure.
Is the
Um,
PowerPoint
For the color, sorry?
Is the PowerPoint going to be on your website?
It is right now because I did this talk at the Fort Lauderdale. I just modified very little, but everything is pretty much there. My site is dev@heart or developer@heart.com. And I'll give you the business cards if anybody needs afterwards. This particular diagram is from this book, Universal Principles of Design, which is at the end.
Okay.
And they have a, this book is very interesting. I don't know why I'm promoting it, but I'm not getting paid. Should probably.
Yeah.
This book, it has it's a universal principle of design, so you would expect the book to be well designed, right?
No.
And it is actually, I love it. I would read the book and then I tell my wife, hey, this is what I read, it's cool. So it's really cool. It has on one page, they explain the design. On the second page, so they have a diagram. So this diagram.
Okay.
So
Okay.
every design principle has 2 pages. And it has 125 design principles. And I'm covering today maybe 7 or something like that. So this is how little I can put in this talk. And you can talk for years.
Oh yeah.
So MailChimp and I worked a lot lately to send all those emails. And I really love this design. Look how clean it is. At least it looks clean to me. I don't know, maybe I just got used to it. But they use a very efficiently color. They have a nice, cool background color, white and blue. Those are cool colors because cool colors are great for background. And they have a nice and warm, kind of like a red, orangish for foreground for letters and the bottom. So warm colors are great for foreground. And you see how they group the elements? It's light gray. Because light gray doesn't compete with any colors. So that's how they leverage the colors in an excellent design. And I don't know, but I always thought that colors have some symbolism, have some meaning. People say, well, you should not paint your wall this color or that. But that's not true. There's no really evidence that color has any symbolism and affects our mood. Because different people, different cultures have different perception of a color. Like like in our Western world, white is a color of peace, angels, bride. Whereas in Eastern world, it's a symbol of funerals, or white carnation in Japan symbolizes death. So when we're designing apps or websites, they are globally used. Like when I published my app, I never thought about how's that guy in Pakistan going to perceive my app. But if I really want to be successful in Pakistan, I would probably have a color scheme that matches that culture, or China. Because they perceive differently. What's appealing to us may not be appealing to those cultures. So maybe we should leverage geolocation and present different color scheme, whether you use CSS or whatever, for that geolocation, for that different culture. So those were just few design principles, universal design principles that I took away from the book that I just mentioned earlier. But there are many more, and I would like to talk about it a lot more, but unfortunately we don't have time. So I'm going to let you read on your own, and you can hopefully get it from the library if you don't want to invest money, because it's not the cheapest book out there. I think it's like $25 or so. But I highly recommend it. So now let's look at a couple of practical tips that I think are worth mentioning. We still keep talking about these apps and websites, but I work for Google now, as I said earlier, and we have these all kinds of meetings where Larry and Sergey, they talk about products, where we are going, what we're doing. I haven't heard a single time mention an app or a website. all they're talking about is experience. What experience we provide, what experience this product is providing. So when you're thinking about apps, don't think about the functionality. Think about experience. How is user experiencing your product? I'll give you an example. Recently I went to a wine room in Winter Park. And so I wanted to take a note of the wine I was drinking, so I remember it next time, so maybe I want to get a different wine, or maybe I like that one a lot. So I'm like, okay, let me download some app. So I downloaded this app, and so I ran the app, and there's no way to input the text. All I had to do is take a picture of the bottle. When I took the picture, it got sent to their service, and then it came back with all the information pre-populated for me. So it pre-populated information, and not only that, it brought the comments from people who drank the same wine and what their experience was. So that's experience. That's an experience. That's not an app. That's not like I had to do something, right? And it also GPS app. When I'm driving, I just say I want to go that way. I want to go to whatever 1244 Travertine Terrace where I live, and it's just gonna guide me, tell me where I need to go. I don't need to do anything. It's going to tell me, in half a mile you're going to turn right. In quarter of a mile you're going to turn right. Turn right now. It just talks to me. That's an experience. That's not an app. And the way to create experience is to use the sensors, to embrace everything that phone provides, whether it's a near-field communication, voice, GPS, compass, camera. I mean, HTML5 supports geolocation. I mentioned at the beginning. Zip code. Don't ever ask me to enter the zip code. Just pre-populate for me. If you're asking me, that's awful design. Don't ask me that. Lifetime. Embrace the feature of the platform. Don't think that one size fits all. That concept, I don't believe in that concept. I don't believe that you can design one app and let's run it on every platform. Especially Windows Phone. It's very different. Lifetime is an example. Share contract, search contract, embrace the platform, make it an experience. You should experience Windows to its full potential. If I create an app and I don't embrace share contract, search, none of that, that's not experience. That's just another app launcher. I can create app launcher anywhere. But embracing the platform is what makes the experience great. And you don't need a new idea to be successful. You don't need to keep banging your head what I need to do. Just make it different. Whatever you come up with, make it different than whatever is out there. Look at what other people have done and pick out one thing and say, I'm going to make the best experience for this particular task, whatever that is. Whether that's a weather app or it's a log for people who like beer, wine, whatever. Take that one thing and make it best. The simplest, the least cognitive load, the least kinematic load. Embrace all the sensors, all the available features to you. And if you want to have a secondary experience, make them great. And throw away those 80%. Focus on those 20%. So now you're all probably thinking, that's great, but I work for Publix. I'm not going to use this. This is crap, right? Like, what do I need? I'm not doing Windows. I'm not doing tablet. I just do this Windows Forms or some website. Maybe that's not applicable. But that's not true, you know? Maybe you have this big monolithic app at your work that's hard to use and you're never going to move to Windows 8 to Metro or whatever. But what you can do is create a hybrid app. Keep that big monolithic app there, but let only administrators use that. Create this Metro style or a tablet or phone apps that are good for one particular task. For instance, your manager, all he cares is about reports. Create an app for reports only, reporting app. Maybe that customer service representative cares about a couple features that he uses every day. Make an app for that person. And then it's a lot easier to maintain it, update it, because you're affecting only those 2-3 managers, or you're affecting those 100 customer service representatives when you're upgrading and making changes. But their experience will be much better, training costs will be lower, performance will be better, error rates will be lower. So you can have this hybrid app. That's a good transition if you want to move towards newer technologies. And everybody uses laptops, tablets, and phones. So we need to keep in mind that power is critical. Test your app for power performance. How much power your app uses. If you're using reporting, like your manager goes to a meeting and he needs to pull up maybe 10 reports during the meeting, are you going to pull up those 10 reports at the beginning of the meeting? Or are you going to pull those reports as needed? Well, that manager doesn't want to run out of the battery by the end of the meeting, right? He wants to have that battery. Is it more efficient to download that all at once in a batch or staggered? So things need to be tested. We need to keep those in mind. And then there's only so much we can do to optimize our app. Once we hit that threshold that we can't do much, we should fall onto perceived performance. And this is something that we can do with animations, for instance. Like Windows 8 and Windows Phone is very smooth, has a lot of animations, looks nice. But those animations are not only there to entertain us, they're also there to trick us into believing how fast and fluid Windows is, right? They are there while your animation is being executed. Another thread is loading the information. By the time animation is finished, the information is right there, and you're like, wow, that's cool. Whereas on a web page, you click on a button and then the things are loading. There's no animation. Well, Windows would be slow without animations. Those animations help us trick the user. And the first experience user has with your app is a splash screen. And it's proven that first run, your user will give you maybe 8 to 30 seconds before they will give up and uninstall your app, because there's only 100,000 apps in the marketplace they can download. So you have those 8 to 30 seconds. So that first experience needs to be really good. And splash screen is very important to be well designed. So provide a very good splash screen. They will either be entertaining enough for a user, or trick the user into believing that your app is extremely fast. One technique you can use is taking a screenshot of your first screen. So take a screenshot of first screen and make that a splash screen. So when the user runs the app, they'll think, wow, this app is already loaded. By the time the user realizes that that's a screenshot, your data will be there already. That's a great technique. But that works only if your first screen is static, right? If it's dynamic, then it won't make any sense, because it will like, what just happened? I lost my data. It ran away. So be cautious how you use that. So what we talked about is evolution of UI, how we went from command line interface all the way to natural user interface, where it became invisible, where the interface actually learned from the user and became invisible. And then we looked at some universal principles of design. Unfortunately, only a few of them, as I was able to cover. And at the end, I showed you some practical tips that I learned in the past several years. So I hope this talk gave you something that you can take home and try to improve your apps, and see that we don't need to be like Apple or Microsoft, have all these resources to design great UI or UX. We can leverage, like they've been leveraging, all these universal principles of design to create good user experience. So I'm going to leave you with a quote from Albert Einstein: everything should be made as simple as possible, but not simpler. Well, that's about it. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask now, or stop by to chat if you want. And I have a business card, if anybody's interested. Again, my website, davidcard.com, and Twitter, Slowboy80, if you follow me there.